financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic, a little bit different. If I lose my job, how do I start a new business? Motivation for this show, we have to credit to Mr. Brian Small. Good morning.
Good morning, Ken. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Jeffrey Linden.
Good morning.
Matt Samasco.
We're right in Brian's wheelhouse today.
Why do I credit this to Brian? Because he's focused on, well, people are losing their job in this economy. Ken, why don't we do a show on some of the stuff that you do a lot of, where it's starting a new business and structuring?
It's called Down in the Dumps, Start Looking for Opportunity. Opportunity sometimes comes with creating your own business.
So on that, I want to throw out the very first item. You'll never guess what it is.
Wait, can I guess?
Go for it.
I bet you it's the 3-point retirement plan.
Bingo. Own your home free and clear, zero debt, cash in the bank by time of retirement. Rose taught me, do not eat matzo ball soup from an unknown source. And that was proven. Not only did Rose teach me that and my brother, but also Candy and Irma, which were our two dogs at the time, who rejected the matzo balls underneath the table at the Passover Seder, just to give you the background. Why am I bringing in I haven't thought about that in a long time. Why am I bringing in the 3-point retirement plan in the context of starting a business?
Well, because that's always your goal. And you have to find a way to get there, right? So,
Not quite.
Oh,
Not quite?
No, because those are resources you can use to start a business to jumpstart you.
What I'm saying is, right, you're both right, but what I'm focused on is to say, all right, if I lose my job, I'm going to start a new business. I'm doing this in the context of my ultimate goal for the 3-point retirement plan, but I also have to make an evaluation of if I'm going to take what I've designated as retirement funds, or I'm going to borrow against the house that I paid for in order to get the capital I need to start the business. Am I willing, is it a smart risk to take to potentially lose that money, and what's the impact on my goal of getting to the 3-point retirement plan? So it's an issue. Am I 50, losing my job, starting a new job? Or am I 62 doing that? And where am I at on the 3-point retirement plan? That to me is a big question.
well, losing your job, you're not retired. You might be forcibly retired,
Correct.
but you are unemployed.
So my choices are, if I have to get if I need income, I'm not ready to retire, I haven't met my 3-point retirement goal, so I can't retire yet. I either have to get a new job where I don't put capital at risk, or potentially start a business. And if I'm going to start a business, how do I successfully start a business but minimize my risk?
That's a big deal with all these whole divisions of the federal government being shut down and a whole new people entering the workforce, all the different ages. It's going to be really
It's
tough.
a big issue. Let me flip it over to you, Brian, because my motivation and the thought process that went into that statement goes to your comments that you've made on the show about everybody wants to start a pizza place.
Well, yeah, I mean, the concept is when you're thinking about starting a business, the first question is what type of business do you want to go into? recognize that you may have been the greatest widget maker on the planet. You may have been the best watchmaker. You may have been the best salesperson on the planet. That doesn't mean you know how to make pizza.
Or run a business.
Or run a business. And
Yeah, making it is way different than running the business.
And-
Kelsey's so smart. She goes, I want to be an elder law attorney, but I want nothing to do with running an elder law firm. It's completely different.
see, running a business requires some level of financial fortitude. You have to understand what it takes to operate the business, how much income you need to have just to maintain expenses. What's your overhead going to be? What is your rent going to be? What's your advertising going to be? How much are you willing to take out of that nest egg that you've put away so that you can make the business work? Does the model, have you done enough investigation of what you're thinking about doing? Just because your buddy Bob has a great pizza joint that's been in business for 30 years doesn't mean that A, Bob is making a ton of money. B, doesn't mean that you're going to make any money when you open up a business 2.5 miles away from Bob.
So why, exactly, same point. Why does Kelsey say that to you? What is she focused on when she says that? I want to be an elder law attorney. I don't want to run an elder law business.
Because she sees me and my brother, who own the law firm, all the stuff that we have to deal with on hiring and firing and payroll and advertising, and all that stuff is completely separate and from the actual helping the client sitting at the table. Everyone wants to sit and help the client.
Right.
And it's so funny, but it's fun. The one guy's going in to meet Brian to set up the business, and his buddy Bob is walking out. He just got to Jeff about all the taxes he hasn't paid. So he got.
I see it all the time. And what you run into the issue is there is a mindset that you need. You may not have it or you can adopt it, but there's a certain mindset that exists in order to successfully run a business. I don't care what business it is. And that mindset is dramatically different than the mindset you have as an employee whose job is to make his money, satisfy his superiors, and grow as an employee.
Yeah.
And you have to, in the process of making this transition, you have to address that issue as well, because it's critical to success. Let's take a break and we'll come back.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
For almost 60 years, Samasco Law has been the trusted source for helping families navigate the uncertain world of estate planning and elder law. And now, our firm is growing even stronger with the addition of attorneys Joe Frazard and Kelsey Samasco. 2 more lawyers to make sure your family is protected now and into the future. Call Samasco Law today for a free consultation. Our hardworking team is standing by to provide you peace of mind. Samasco Law, protect what matters.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, so we're back. So I'm throwing out there two issues, and then we got to migrate off of it. One is, if you're committed to starting a new business, you need to look at minimizing your risk, and you need to be able to afford to take the risk. How much can I afford to lose? Goes back to that same issue, because you can't start a business without investing capital, or it's very difficult. The chances of having a significant size business where you invest no capital is relatively slim. So you've got to minimize your risk, and you also have to make sure you're adopting the right mental approach as to how you're going to run the business. And I'll share with you the baseline. It's about making sure, think about a cigar box. It's not complicated, the thought process. More has to come into the cigar box every month than goes out. What's left has to be sufficient to support you in the wage that you want to earn and have a cushion in that cigar box to cover contingencies. If you can make that cigar box work running a business, you'll be successful. If the cigar box empties out every month and there's nothing to take out of it, you're in big trouble and the business will fail. And you have to think in terms of the cigar box first on every single decision you make when you're running your business. If you don't, you're just gambling.
Is that the speech you give Brian when he wants a raise?
I talked about the cigar box. I'm saying to him, we could do that, Brian, but if we did that, there wouldn't be anything left in the cigar box.
You got to take it from Jeff. Right. You got to take it from Jeff.
So how do you all right, so the next questions that always come up is, well, if I'm going to start my business, I'm committed to it, what's the right entity? Do I do it as a sole proprietor or a partnership? Do I do it as a sub-S corporation? Or do I do it as an LLC? That's the first, choice of entity. All right, the easy thing is this: never as a sole proprietor, never as a partnership. Why? Because sole proprietors and partnerships have unlimited liability. Whatever the debts are of the business, they are yours personally. If you have partners, they're both of yours personally.
There's easy way for our viewers to understand. You own a house that you've rented out. Your house, Mrs. Smith lives there, and she falls down the stairs and she breaks her neck. And she is going to sue the owner of the home. The owner of the home happens to be you. And you've got a boatload of money and
not enough insurance.
And guess what? Mrs. Smith gets an award from the court, and she gets to take the money from you as an individual. If it's the right type of entity,
LLC.
A limited liability company, if your house was owned by an LLC, Mrs. Smith can only get what's inside the LLC. That limits your liability to the insurance policy and the value of the assets in the LLC. She can't get to your personal assets.
So transfer that to a business. You're running the business. You have vendors. You're buying goods. You're a restaurant. Gordon Food Service is delivering you food every month, and they're billing you every 30. You get a bill every 30 days, and you've got electric bills, and you got payables. Your payables amount to $50,000-$60,000 at any one time.
The things going out of the cigar
If you
box.
haven't personally guaranteed those, and you're operating as a corporation or an LLC, you have no personal liability on them. If you've personally guaranteed them, then you'd still have liability. But those things you wouldn't personally guarantee. That's why you always operate as a corp or an LLC.
No,
And then
which one? Which one's right?
The question is which one. All right, there's a benefit and a detriment to each one. The benefit to the corp, you'd operate as what's called a sub-S corp, which is called a pass-through entity, which means the profit of the corporation or the loss flows through to your 1040 tax return. That's a good thing because you don't want what's called double taxation if you were able to sell the business. You also, if you do it as a sub-S corp, you can take some money as salary that you have to pay FICA and Medicare payroll taxes on, and you can take some of the money as a dividend, which avoids having to pay the FICA tax on it. So there's a little bit of a tax benefit there in a sub-S.
But you might be hurting yourself at the same time by not paying enough into Social Security, so there's enough money there for you to collect
max out your
when you retire.
That's a factor that goes into that. And the other thing about a sub-S corp is you have to, if you have multiple owners, you're limited. The amount that you take as distributions has to be tied directly to your ownership percentage. Your other way of operating a business is an LLC. In an LLC, you don't have that structural element that you have in a sub-S corp. You can say, I own 50% of the company, but I get the first 90% of the profits because I'm providing more services than my partner. You have much more flexibility in an LLC, but if you're operating a business, all of that income is subject to self-employment tax. So you have to make a seasoned choice with the assistance of either you're a lawyer or your CPA as to which is the better way. More often than not, I side towards sub-S corp for a simple operating of a business.
Now, from the standpoint of self-employment, just so people understand the tax basis, when you work as an employee for someone, they take 6.5% out for Social Security and Medicare are 7.5%. Right. So if you are self-employed, you have to pay double that.
13.5% if you're self-employed, half of that when you're working as an employee because your employer's matching half. So when you're an employer and you're employing somebody, you're paying the 6.5% on behalf of the employee as well as what's taken out of his check. All right, so that's the decision. So you have to decide on the entity. That's an important choice to make, and you do that with some assistance. The next issue that we're going to come back after the break is, how do I go about minimizing risk?
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirschner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Simasko. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV Gross, Simasko Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Okay, Lisa, we have one last question for you. How old should your grandkids be before they can take the money and spend it on their own?
Thanks, Grandma. Thanks, and I'm getting mine next week.
35. You've worked hard your whole life to create a lasting legacy for your heirs. Let Simasko Law help you make the right decisions to protect the ones you love. Simasko Law, protecting what means most, because that's what we do.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. All right, so now we're starting our new business. How do I minimize risk? Well, let me give you the obvious. If you're borrowing money from the bank to start the business, and you're saying, well, I'm a sub-S corp or an MLLC, I don't want to have any liability on the bank loan. Well, that's not going to happen because the bank's going to make you sign a personal guarantee. So you can't minimize that risk. That issue goes to what we were talking about earlier on the show. How much do I want to put at risk if the business fails? Because you're going to owe the bank at the end if you don't pay back that debt. But there are avenues where you can minimize the risk. And let me give you the one that comes up most important that people blow all the time. You have to lease a building in order to operate your business. And you go and you find the building that you want, and everything looks good. The landlord seems like the nicest guy ever. And he gives you this 35-page lease in 10-point font.
You think it's that big?
And you look at it and you say, oh, this is a standard document. And you just sign it. And you also sign the last page, which has a personal guarantee. Figuring, A, I don't want to bother with a lawyer to go over this, and the landlord knows what he's doing. This is just standard forms.
Can I just throw something in there? No one gets a written lease anymore. No one gets any written content. Everything gets sent.
Worse.
DocuSign. It goes click, 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 click. 5 seconds, you're at the end of the thing, you're all done. No one reads a word of any of that.
That is great, because even on that one, if you've ever noticed on the way they deliver the DocuSign to you, some of them allow you easily to access and click and download the document to review it. Others don't even give you that option unless you specifically have demanded it from the person who sends it. So I all the time get clients forwarding me the DocuSign saying, this is what I want to sign, and I go and I'm not even able to download the document. Right. And I go back to the seller and say, if you don't send me a copy of the document, this ain't going anywhere. And that's so annoying. It's designed. Click, 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 click.
So
there is no defense. If you sign what you sign in writing, you're bound by under Michigan law and virtually every other state. So it's a big. Maybe California has some outs there because they're California's California, but it's a big problem. So back to the lease. First of all, the guarantee issue is a negotiable item, but you must negotiate. What do I do when a client sends me the lease to review? I go and I make edits to the whole lease, and on the guarantee, I start out and I go and I cross the entire thing out. That's the starting point. The landlord comes back and says, no, there has to be a guarantee. And I go, well, if there's going to be a guarantee, we'll guarantee only the first year. And you go back and forth and you limit the guarantee, and you can almost always get some limitations. It's a question of supply and demand. If you're leasing the spot in the strip center that's full in a high traffic area, you're not going to have a lot of leverage because the landlord knows he can find someone else. If you're leasing the spot in a strip mall that is only 20% occupied, you sit back and say, I'm not signing no guarantee. The landlord's going to be more desperate to lease the space. You probably can get that lease. But the question is, do you want that lease if there's no traffic coming there? All these decisions have to be thought through. Now, is that all that's important? No. On the lease, you've got to scrutinize who's responsible for repairs and maintenance. You have to scrutinize, is there a provision that says I have an option to renew, but I lose the option if I have been more than 10 days late on the rent in any 3 months during the whole initial term of the lease? You have to read those things. Landlords are savvy, and there's a lot of them. And the lease that they hand you that's 30 pages long with all the little tiny fonts is a culmination of all the landlords in the world getting together, figuring out how to write a lease that is completely 100% favorable to the landlord on the assumption that a lot of people don't bother reading it. And that is a fateful error.
And I'll tell you something, you know, one of the things that you should consider when you are opening up a business and signing these leases is, before you get involved in that, is what is your personal exposure if the business goes south? Now, nobody ever starts a business with the intention of having it fail. But if the average restaurant fails within 6 months and doesn't make it, and if it makes it past 6 months, it usually fails within 2 years, you're on the hook. So how did you protect your assets before you owe a whole bunch of money? That is one of the things that we also can help with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to go back to something Pat said about the standard lease. Somebody wrote that thing. There's no such thing. It's not like it fell from the sky in heaven and this is the document and everybody has to take it. Somebody created the contract, and they're always negotiable. And people forget that. And by putting it in little print, people think, oh, it's a form. I have no negotiation.
You absolutely want to reject that for sure. You need, going back to what Brian said, you need to think in terms of the scope of your risk and how much you're willing to take. That's the thing. And you have to, mindset has to be owning a business, not being an employee. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with One Reality.